Hello and welcome to All Villa No Filler, a podcast all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team. Please subscribe if you hate the Blues. This is a special feature where I'm joined by Paul Webb, the chairman of the AVFC London Lions. I'm going to try and build an Aston Villa first 11, but with a twist. And from there, I'll let Webbo explain.
Yeah, thanks, Frankie. So I think we've been chatting in the background with London Lions. We thought we'd try and do something a little bit different with this podcast rather than review the latest tweets that are going on about rumours that we may or may not be linked with a new or old badge, whichever one could be in. So this is a podcast that is all about you, Frankie, and your history with the greatest football club in the world. So I was going to start by just asking you a few quick fire first questions. So when was your first season that you feel like you properly got into it? Where do you look at your Villa career starting? What's that first season?
It was the season we came second in the Premier League, 92-93.
So like me, you're a Premier League Villa fan. We accept that football happened to be for that, especially with our history. But for today's 1 to 11, Frankie, I want you to bear in mind, I want Premier League players. I want this to be from your history as a Villa fan. What's your first memory then as a Villa? What's Frankie's first memory?
It was Aston Villa 2, Norwich City 3, when in the season when Norwich came third and we came second, November 92. That was the game before it. So, I've mentioned before, my uncle was a former Aston Villa player, John Dean, and he was also, at that time, he was at Norwich as an assistant manager. And basically, my mum said to me, do I want to support Norwich or Aston Villa? And my dad being a big Birmingham City fan, my mum's family were massive Villa fans, my uncle at Norwich, but my best mates were all Villa fans. So I just decided, it's going to be Villa. I didn't stick with my family and go with Norwich, but I went with and I ignored my dad's pleas to be a Birmingham City fan. And that was it. But my first game was a loss at Villa Park, and it ended up being quite an important loss at the end of the season as well.
Yeah, there was. You look back in that season, it was a maybe or an if season. It could have been so different. One of those sliding doors type seasons. But I think of those three clubs, Frankie, I think you've picked the best one. Albeit if you'd have been a Norwich fan, you'd have been going up and down every season. So you'd have had something to play for. Well, I wondered who was the first name you can remember that you had on the back of a Villa shirt.
I think it was Dean Saunders.
Dino.
I feel like at the time the FA Cup shirt was the only one that had names on the back. Originally, Premier League shirts didn't have the name on the back, I think.
Yeah.
And so I remember getting Saunders on the back, and I went to football training, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, you've got an FA Cup shirt!"
Nice. And so there's one last first, then I'll explain the 1 to 11. And it's sort of a double one when it's sort of like, when did you first realise what being a Villa fan was all about? But that's almost the same question as when was your first Villa heartache? So I think heartache in that era, we've had 2 trophy wins, but it has been more heartache than anything else. So when was your first one? Can you recall?
Oh, my first life experience of heartbreak was Dwight Yorke leaving for Manchester United. I remember a lot of bad moments for Villa, losing games or not winning the title the first season. But Dwight Yorke was like my, Paul McGrath and Dwight Yorke, probably my 2 main players when I first started following Villa. And there was something about Dwight Yorke where he was just so different, such a great player, had been at Villa since I could remember. And then when he left for Manchester United, it was genuinely, I was so devastated. My mum had to drive me to go get a Happy Meal at McDonald's. So a Happy Meal toy would hopefully get me over it. But yeah, I think that, and then seeing him in the Man United shirt the next week, I think they played in white against West Ham in a draw maybe. And I remember it just being like, how can this be happening? And I imagine there's a lot of kids now who had the same experience with Grealish going to City.
Yeah, I think so. I think Dwight Yorke, I think that's a very fair one. I think the bit that really hurt me is I remember going to Old Trafford in his first game against Villa, and they scored. I can't remember who scored. It wasn't Yorke, but he ran over and did his little jump in the air and sort of a fist bump towards the Villa fans.
Oh.
And that you just sort of felt, there was a man who he'd given so much to Villa and so quickly forgotten.
Yeah.
But he still talked about to this day, isn't he, Yorke, in terms of almost that is the benchmark that we need from a striker. It just goes to show how good he was, that even to this day, he's almost still the benchmark that we're still looking for in a striker.
Totally. He was a fantastic player.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on. And that was just trying to open up your mind to the memory banks because you might need to delve into them for this 1 to 11. So what we're going to do, Frank, is I'm going to ask you 11 questions, all of which is going to be a Villa player that you have to give an answer to. What I want you to do is keep to a balanced team. You don't have to commit to 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 just yet. But by the end of this, and I'll remind you of players you've picked and where positions still maybe need to be filled. So I want a rough 11. We could be a little bit fluid with the formation. Perhaps we could even create a new one here and now that you and I could listen to and take it to next season.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm going to ask you 11 questions. Each one is a Villa player. But as we get into it, it might become harder because maybe you have no striking positions left and you have to pick a defender, for example. So let's see where we get to. It's only meant to be a bit of fun. So let's see what Frankie's alternative 11 really is. I'm going to start with a genuine football question. Some of these aren't. Because I thought I'd be generous to see if you can get maybe one of your favourite players in or somebody that has a memory. Could even have mentioned him already. Which Villa player within your era, so all of these are within your era, would you trust most with a last-minute penalty?
Oh,
and we are useless at penalties. I feel like as a team, we've got to be one of the worst in Premier League histories.
Yeah. Do you know, I wouldn't massively trust Ollie Watkins as much as I love Watkins, but it's probably El-Ghazi.
Oh, God, wow.
Never missed a penalty, did he? And, you know, you think back to that Wolves game during the lockdown and we won 1-0, last kick of the game at Molineux, and he buried it. I don't think he ever missed a penalty for us, I think.
No, I'd struggle to, not any springing to mind. I'm with you. There's a lot of players instantly come to mind that I wouldn't trust. Most of the strikers in the last decade feel like that fit into that box. But Anwar El-Ghazi, did you think he would be the first name on your Villa 1 to 11?
I absolutely did not, unless it was a question like, who is the closest thing to Cristiano Ronaldo? I'd be like, oh, God. El-Ghazi, maybe? Yeah, I mean, obviously, like Dwight York's Panenka as well is very memorable against Arsenal. That could definitely qualify him. But no, I think I'll go El-Ghazi just because he always scored. So can't go against that.
This is meant to be almost that first name that comes to your head as opposed to it going into too much stats and details. But I vividly remember that Wolves one because I know Jack made a point of running over to what would have been the away fan to really rub it in. So considering we weren't there that day, I do remember that very well. So Anwar El-Ghazi, probably for the first time ever, is the first name on a Villa 1 to 11. So we've already created history, Frankie.
Yeah, that's what we're all about on this podcast.
Okay, so we're moving away a little bit from football, and I imagine there's a few people who will scream the answer to this one. But which Villa player would you want to organise your stag do?
Oh, it's John McGinn, isn't it? It's got to be. Got to be John McGinn. just feel I feel like John McGinn would be really good at like knowing. I feel like he'd be experienced with stag do's. I feel like he'd know a lot of good places to go, a lot of good cities, and would sort you out with a few contacts, get you in VIP somewhere, have the right sort of idea about what's fun and what isn't, and would just be a good a rallying captain like presence on a stag do to get you sort of everyone together. Because believe it, I've been on stag do's where the best man who was organising it disappeared. So we all just wandered around Brighton for an entire night. Like, has anyone seen this guy?
You need some organisation about it. Do you think people would have expected a Jack Grealish perhaps when you hear stag do?
Well,
maybe not the organisation part of it.
Yeah, I'd be up for Grealish being there, in his slippers or whatever it is that he did the one time. But I feel, and he'd be great company. But I think I wouldn't trust Jack to organise it. Probably, he'd probably know I reckon Grealish would know the people who own the bars. Yeah, and would get you in VIP everywhere. But I feel like McGinn's the one who would sort everything out and make sure that. Jack could disappear in Brighton and you'd be like, where's Jack gone? Whereas I feel like McGinn, he'd feel a sense of no, I've got to keep the troops rallied, I've got to keep them going.
He'd be there waking you up at 10 a.m. to go karting when everybody's hanging. So that's fantastic. So we've got John McGinn and Anwar El-Ghazi. So we've got a couple of more recent players, obviously the current captain as well. So I know you and I have a guilty pleasure outside of Villa. We like a little bit of the WWE.
Yeah.
So which Villa player would you most like to have as a tag team partner?
Oh my goodness. Probably Dion Dublin.
The big man, the big Dion Dublin.
He headbutted Robbie Savage. What more can he ask for?
So that's his finishing move straight away, the headbutt.
I can hear Jim Ross just be like, my God, we've got as my witness.
So we've got the big man up top, Dion Dublin as a tag team partner. He's quite fierce. You could have like the little and large tag team with yourself and Dion. I like that as an answer. Yeah. I was thinking maybe going throwback. Sean Teal was quite an intimidating character back in the early years, and some of the centre backs, but I like Dion Dublin.
Yeah. And I think Sean Teal's finishing move would be like the knee-high sliding tackle. Like Bill Goldberg's spear, only with his legs.
Yeah, I like it. Another name, perhaps, in terms of people that wasn't afraid to injure our opposition was Mark Bosnich.
Oh, God, yeah.
With the karate kicking style.
Yeah.
As well. So you've got a sort of a striker now. You've got a goal threat in Dion Dublin. You've got your midfield, sort of like an anchor man, or certainly a midfield tempo with John McGinn, and that outlet on the wing with Anwar El-Ghazi. So no defenders. No goalkeepers yet.
Right.
So previously on a podcast, we've discussed annoying Villa fans who stand behind you or near you. Wherefore, which player would you least like to have stood behind you for a season in the Holt End, shouting their views, or just so that you could hear them throughout?
Oh, my goodness. I think maybe Emi Martinez. Now, I love Emi Martinez, but like he's a goalkeeper, and goalkeepers love to moan. They shout and they moan and they scream at their defenders all the time. He's my favorite goalkeeper in the world. Maybe one of my favorite. Well, no, he is one of my favorite Villa players ever. But I just imagine him standing behind you on the whole team, like endlessly yelling at like the players to, like. Conte, get the ball. What are you doing? Like, just, I think, I don't think I'd ever want to be near a goalkeeper in a football stadium. I just let them shout get them on the pitch and let them shout at everyone else.
Yeah, they're used to having to shout really loud because usually the players are so far away.
Yeah,
they need to get their voice heard. So I like the idea of having a goalkeeper. Well, I don't like the idea of having a goalkeeper to be shouting, trying to get his voice. That is a very good point. I guess he would be pro passing it around at the back, which is a good thing in the Holt End. If you really wouldn't want an old school Nigel Spink style goalkeeper behind you who would just be shouting hoof it as loud as possible.
Spink going absolutely mad that you're like, there's little 5-yard passes between Emi Martinez and Tyrone Mings.
I can't imagine Nigel Spink's on board with that. But we've now got our goalkeeper. And I think genuinely a lot of fans would put Emi Martinez in their genuine 1 to 11 now. I think it's a position we've struggled almost when we talked about that benchmark with York. It's almost going back to Bosnich. Some people will go that far back. Friedel maybe. But what a player he is, and fingers crossed he's there at the start of the season. So you and your better half are going on a double date.
Right.
Which Villa player and their other half would you like to go on a double date with? A nice a nice civil meal, nothing too leery. Who do you want to have a nice conversation with? A bottle of wine, etc.
Well, I believe I would have said John McGinn again, just because by all accounts, everything I know, I've heard about from various people who know him, have met him, that he's a really lovely bloke and great conversationalist and all that. Okay, well, it can't be the current back four because they're the most handsome men on the planet. Carl Torres, Tyrone Mings, Alex Moreno, and Matty Cash. I mean, you just sat there. I'm like, what am I doing here? I've got no chance here. Oh God, that is a tough one. Double date. Paul McGrath, and right. The reason I can say Paul McGrath is one of my favourite players ever. I know I need a defender, but I feel like I would, because obviously I grew up supporting Ireland as well as England, so I have very, very fond memories of McGrath playing for Villa, but also that game against Italy in 1994, which was on my 8th birthday in the World Cup in the USA, and he was an absolute colossus when Ireland beat Italy 1-0, and Italy, of course, they went on to the final. So I'll probably just sit there the entire night boring him to death by asking him constantly about what it was like in that game and how he was so great at football, how it feels to be called God. And, he'd probably have to get used to me, like getting down on my knee and worshipping him. He is God. So, yeah, maybe Paul McGrath, just so I could ask him all about, his time as a
so on a double date, you've chosen what is probably about a 55-year-old man. So you want to go on a double date, you and your better half, with people in their mid-50s. I have no idea how
yeah.
I was expecting somebody maybe of your own age at that point, Frankie, but I get the point about grilling Paul McGrath. And again, I don't think there's a Villa 1-11 without Paul McGrath in it. So
no way.
Kudos to getting him in some way, shape or form. So we've got McGrath. We're beginning to get a bit of shape to this. I think we still need a few defenders, midfielders and attackers. So you've still got plenty of options to play with. This time we're going down the pub, Frankie, and it's quiz night.
Right.
You need to pick a Villa player from your history to be on your pub quiz team.
Oh, Jack Grealish. No.
I assume you go straight for Gabby and Bonham.
Yeah, was it Grealish? You said he didn't know what an encyclopedia was. Yeah. God bless him. God bless the man. God bless the man. I know the Football Ramble podcast play that a lot. They call it Jack's Encyclopedia of the game, so it's great. But who would be a pub quiz? That's a tough one. Maybe I sort of feel like Tyrone Mings might be quite decent. Okay. I feel he worked. What was it? Ty's Mortgages back in the day. That's what he was, a mortgage advisor. So I feel like he's an intelligent guy. He'd be great to have in your team. Good in the pub. Good character to G the team up, and I think he'd like look out for other teams that are cheating. I think he'd like, if he saw another team cheating, you know that voice you hear when you can hear him on the pitch, just like hey, he'd do that across the pub. So I think everyone's eyes would be drawn to anyone who's cheating on their phones. So it'd be great for that. And I feel like he'd be quite, he's quite a smart, erudite guy. He's into his politics, all that. Yeah. So I think Mings would be a decent bet as on a pub quiz. And
there's a lot of I can see that he's got a few things outside of football, hasn't he? He's got his academy. He set up this homeless charity with Prince. Is it Prince William? Still, is that still what we call Prince William? I'm not sure what his official title is these days. And you're right, he's got a bit, and he's did his mortgage thing, so he's clearly not just being in the football bubble all his life. So you think he'd have a bit of general knowledge, and that's. And he's obviously a great leader, and he's maybe a bouncer type figure. So I will be asking you to pick a captain from this, and it could be a struggle to name one at the end of this. There's a few candidates already, but it feels like you've got your back two sorted. Maybe you'll go for a back three. We got Mings and McGrath at the back, which is sort of the modern and the historic era coming together there. I like those two. The next one. I'm assuming you have watched or are aware of the Netflix show Squid Games.
Yes, amazing show.
Villa player, do you think can most likely win on Squid Games?
Who'd win on Squid Game? Maybe it'd be somebody who'd go really under the radar, like Matt Target, just really quietly
So not drawing attention to himself.
But that could be useful. I feel like Marvelous Nakamba would be like a bit, be brave and courageous and keep going. Maybe someone who just like quietly gets on with stuff like Matt Target. Just sort of like
Target is fine. You needed a left back, mate. You needed a left back.
Yeah, he's just kind of like. Everyone's looking out at each other. You see Tyrone Mings, you see Pau Torres, you see all these big guys, big characters, and then Matt Target's just there quietly working away, doing the job, and then before you know it, he's the last one standing.
Yeah, I like it. I like it under the radar. There's a bit of logic to it as well, Frankie.
Yeah.
Why not? Who knows who could win that game? So I think better to go for a player with a bit of brains about him. Albeit, what I would say about dear old Matt Target is that when it got tough,
Yeah.
he did go a little bit missing every now and again. So I'm not sure how he's going to compete on it.
It's the Adama Traore running at him again.
Yeah,
like, no!
that'll be the boss, the final boss.
He'd throw himself out the game, like jump off.
So I think we've definitely got a goalkeeper, a left back, two centre half. So assuming we were going flat back four, you'd have a right back left, two midfielders and an attacking player. I think you're four. If you were to go for a traditional formation, you could flick it up and have a centre back and have a wing back, but we'll see how we're going. So we've definitely still got the three main areas on the pitch we can cover with the final questions. The next time I'm taking you on a road trip. So you're stuck in a car going down Route 66. We're in a camper van. You're sleeping night and day. Nobody else you're speaking with. They're picking the music. They're in charge of everything. Who are you going on a road trip with across America?
I'll do it with Jack Grealish. That's how I'll get Grealish in.
Just out of interest, you've picked a man who's quite renowned for driving incidents.
Yeah.
To safely get you across America.
Yeah.
I haven't said this on any other one. Do you want to rethink your answer at all?
No, I'm going to stick with him. I'm going to keep him. I'm going to do it. Just because I think by the end of that adventure, if you made it alive across Route 66, I feel like you'd have so many hilarious stories of things that had happened with Super Jack that you'd be like, that time in Vegas, for instance.
You're suggesting you'd get out of Vegas with Jack.
Yeah, probably there for a few days and months, probably. But yeah, I think just because I think he's a fun character, and seems it. And it'd be funny stories, and I think what else would the bit like? Picking the music, I think he'd have terrible music. For my taste, I think it'd probably be like the sort of stuff you'd hear in every Ibiza club over and over again. And I think driving along to that every hour of every day would be really annoying. But I just feel like I'm thinking in my head, if I was to write a comedy film, what would be the funniest one? I think like having Route 66 with Jack Grealish, being the main event would be there'd be a lot of really fun stuff. Like it'd be like The Hangover, wouldn't it? You'd have a baby. You somehow end up carrying a baby around. There'd be a tiger in the bathroom.
I have a feeling you'd have to educate him on what America is halfway through. I think he would have so many stupid questions about where he is at any point.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So entertainment, I would advise maybe you do some of the driving.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying on that. So I think that maybe you could have another striker in there, but you've got Anwar, you've got Grealish, you've got Dion, so you've certainly got attacking players. Mm-hmm. So with the midfield, that's looking a little bit there. You've got John McGinn, who does a lot of running. Mm-hmm. At a minute, he's doing a lot of running on his own as we go into the final three questions. Okay. So this was a little bit of it's inspired by the latest Matty Cash video, where I think the video, there was a day in the life of Matty Cash, where the only thing I learned is that he drinks Starbucks, and that was it, really. But you could switch personalities. You are no longer Frankie for today on a non-match day, so not playing. Which Villa player could be of any era? You could go back of their lifetime. You're going to switch into their body for the day. On a non-match day, which Villa player would you like to be a fly on the wall, as it were? Who do you want to be for a day?
Which Villa player would I want to
be? Bearing in mind, you probably want to focus in on a defender or midfield, to make it unbalanced.
I'm trying to think of like way back good midfielders we've had over the years.
Well, good midfielders over here. We've had, if you go way back, Ian Taylor, Mark Drake, Milner, Barry, Petrov, but they don't have to be good. You could have a day in life as Jemba, a day in life as Marvellous Nakamba.
I think Ian Taylor's a good shout, because I'd get to live the life of an Aston Villa fan living their dream as a Villa legend and fantastic player as well. What a life. You grow up an Aston Villa fan, you become a Villa player, you become a really great Villa player, And from that day on, from the day you retire, you're like, what can I do from my mid-30s? Just go to Villa every week, sit in the good seats, or if I want to one week, just go to the whole end instead. Do whatever, go down the training ground whenever I want. What a life!
Yeah, I think he's also an ambassador, isn't he, of sorts? I see him poking up in like the Dubai Villa Lions and the Hong Kong Villa. So he seems to just travel the world promoting Villa after being of that. So I think that is a fantastic answer.
We got to get him in the London Lions, Webbo. Got to get him down here.
Wow. Yeah, funny you should say that. You may have preempted one of the questions coming up, Frankie.
Oh, okay.
He's ahead of it. The last two questions are sort of bringing it back to the podcast and the London Lions, as it were. So, a dream guest, if you could have any guest on your pod from the Villa days, who would you like? And bearing in mind, at the minute, we look like we're going sort of a 4-3-3 formation. So we don't have a right back and we don't have a centre midfield.
Okay. I think maybe Gareth Barry then.
Yeah, what a player.
Because I think, I sort of forget now, was he left or right back? I think he was a left back.
Well, he was left-footed, but he was probably one of those players that, bar goalkeeper, played in every position. So,
yeah, he did. Yeah,
and he played that centre midfield role so well towards that's sort of what got him the move to Man City, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you could see him at right back. You could see him as that sort of, well, he was that sort of linchpin in midfield as well. Super player. It was. I remember when he left for City. He'd been at Villa for such a long time by then, hadn't he? Been about 10 years. And I didn't actually begrudge him leaving at the time. I know it was annoying because we were in a bit of an ascendant moment, and it was annoying it went to City as well. It hadn't been good for that long, really, by that point.
Yeah.
But I kind of I sort of understood it. He had been there a long time, not won anything. And I remember when he came back and there was that guy in the stands right next to him who had those like fake pound notes thrown at him. And I remember just thinking, like, come on, like, we can't be like. And I thought it was a bit. It made us look a bit. I don't know. I didn't think it made us look great. But I mean, whilst I understand the frustration of him leaving as well, I'm not saying I wasn't annoyed at it. But he, he was there at Villa for so long, a great career. I think most appearances ever in the Premier League. Still, I think
him or Milner. I think it is still Barry, but Milner's hunting him down. But yeah, he was a great player, really underrated. Really, I can't remember how many titles he ended up winning, but yeah, I think the Villa fans were annoyed because he joined Man City before they were a Champions League team. So one of those things, almost just don't make a press statement when you say, I'll only leave Villa if it's a Champions League team, because he felt his move to Liverpool was going to come into fruition. Sometimes it's best just to be quiet. You can't deny what he's achieved since he left Villa, and I think he was one of the best players we had. Certainly in the Premier League era. And Villa fans are still a little bit bitter about his departure, but yeah, he was world class. Interestingly, your point. So I forgot they threw fake money. I also forgot that we flew inflatable snakes at Delph and threw cabbages at Steve Bruce. So we've got quite a collection of things we have thrown on the pitch at Villa Park.
We are a unique fan base, a creative fan base. I think the Delph one was different. Obviously the way said I'm going to stay, I'm not going to leave, and then a couple of days later ends up going to City. It was just that was absolutely bewildering to witness.
Yeah, so it really wasn't it?
Very different, yeah.
So now we come to the final question, which links, like I say, back to this. So with Gareth Barry being in your team now, he could play left back. Matty Targett could switch to right back. You've given yourself a few options of positions. You can move things around. You mentioned at the top of the call, so I help run the London Lions football team. So I'll give a little bit of promotion. We're always looking for new recruits. If anyone's listened to this and has recently moved to London and fancies playing football with a load of other Villa fans, or if you also want to just watch the games that Villa play when they're on TV, there's a lot of things going on. So reach out to Frankie via this pod or look for AVFC London Lions on social media. We're always looking to recruit, and hopefully we'll be as welcoming as we can be. Mm-hmm. So the final question, therefore, Frankie, is if you could have any player playing for us in the London Lions, Who are you picking?
Ooh.
Bearing in mind, you've got to be you've only got a right back left, but you can be a little bit creative by sticking Target perhaps in the right back position.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna get creative, I think.
Yeah.
And so I need a midfielder. Um, I am gonna go with uh ooh, sort of really tempted to go back to like 92, 93. But I think I'm gonna go Douglas Luiz.
Dougie
The
Louise.
reason I say that is because I think Luiz's level, I think this season is my prediction is that he's going to go to a very, very high level indeed. I rate him extremely highly. And I just think I think he could be a regular Brazil international by the end of this season.
Yeah.
And if I was to pick out a player who I think might be a target of someone like a Man City potentially in the next year or two, just accepting that other teams do look at our players, I'd say he's probably quite high on the list just because Pep Guardiola has always rated him.
Yeah.
I think he just has such great footballing ability, knowledge of it's sort of just his just on pitch abilities, working his way out of tight positions, playing it, just as a sort of metronomic player who links the defense to the attack. I think he's a really quality player. And maybe I think this is the year that a lot of the other sort of non-Villa fans maybe start to think this Douglas Luiz guy is really good.
Yeah.
And it's a little surprise Arsenal wanted him when they did. I think I'll go with him just so I can have another midfielder. And I think Barry in at right back or left back would work fine as well. So,
Yeah.
Boubacar Kamara's tempting as well. Go all the way back to maybe a Gordon Cowins, though he's more of an attacker. Sean Teal, Kevin Richardson, Stan the Man Petrov. But I think I'll go Douglas Luiz just because I know it's probably immediacy, recency bias, but he is just, I think, one of the absolutely amazing player. And I think my prediction is that this season he goes to a higher level. Now I play this in a year's time. We go, how bad was Douglas Luiz this season?
Well, he was worthy winner of Player of the Season and Fans Player of the Season, whatever the titles he won, which was fantastic. And also, I remember that link with Arsenal. And I think the general consensus with Villa fans was I wouldn't be too disappointed to see him go for 20 million at the time. He came on leap and bound under Unai, and I'm excited to see him and Kamara, Tielemans. I think we've got a midfield there that can actually win quite a lot of games and actually compete with a top team. So, yeah, I'd certainly welcome him into the London Lions fold. I'm sure I'll be able to find a way to get him into the team somehow.
I feel like he'd be good on the socials as well.
Yeah. You've got that South American feel. He'll be able to take us to a few unique places in London. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So brilliant. Thanks, Frankie. So let's just quickly run through it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to ask you two questions at the end. Who do you want as your captain and who do you want to manage these? I'm pretty certain I know who you're going to pick as a manager. I know you have another bromance brewing very much at the moment. So you've got Emi Martinez in goal. We've got a right back, we'll say Matt Target, left back Gareth Barry, Mings and McGrath as two centre backs. A midfield three of Dougie Luiz, John McGinn and Ian Taylor. Super Jack Grealish, your tag team partner Dion Dublin, and then the penalty king Anwar El-Ghazi up top, which makes up Frankie's alternative 11. Who's going to be your captain then, Frankie? Because you've got some big names in there. I think Barry captained Villa, Emmy has captained Villa, Mings, and I think did McGrath captain Villa? I'm not sure.
He did, yeah. I think he did.
Ian Taylor may have done as well. Obviously, Jack Grealish did. John McGinn has. So you've got quite a lot of leaders in your team. But who's going to be your captain?
I think it's going to be Paul McGrath. I think he's got a strong case to be our greatest ever player. Some would argue, the likes of Dennis Mortimer or Andy Gray, various other players that have, Morley, with all those types. But I don't know. I really think McGrath was a player who could have played for any team ever and made it into their central defence and was just a talismanic, fantastic player. And so I think he's my man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think with McGrath, sometimes with Villa players, we get bias.
Yeah.
Never. With all football fans, you get bias and you talk about world-class players. What I love to see now is, I don't know if you watch the overlap, Gary Neville's sort of thing with
Yeah.
Sky, and they went back to Ireland recently and they got Paul McGrath on there with Roy Keane.
All
And
right.
the way Roy Keane talks about Paul McGrath and the way that the Irish audience just lapped him up, you sort of just that like confirmation that actually this isn't a Villa bias.
Yeah.
This was a world class footballer who probably didn't reach the heights he could have, almost like a Ledley King style injuries, and never got to there. But when he was on his game, that Italy, I think there's a short YouTube video of Paul McGrath against Italy for Ireland, and it is a masterclass. It's defending. It's just
unbelievable.
People will just be talking about a Rolls Royce defender, barely breaking sweat, positioning like nobody else, just read the game better. And world class. We call him God for a reason. So I think nobody's going to argue with you on Paul McGrath as your captain. Maybe there's a few others. Your left-hand side or whatever it is of Matt Targett and Anwar El-Ghazi could be questioned. Yeah. Paul McGrath will not be. And who's going to be your manager then, Frankie?
Manager, I'm sort of tempted to say Sadine Smith, Brian Little as well. Loved him, but I think it's got to be Professor Unai, hasn't it? I think the Professor, what he's done in the last 8 months has been probably the best football I've ever seen at Aston Villa in the time I've supported them, in the sense it's the most kind of up to date and thought through and intelligent. And we've had a lot of great managers with Martin O'Neill as well, and what he did, and Dean Smith, that 10-game winning streak, the Championship, keeping us up in the Premier League, and Ron Atkinson back in the day, Brian Little, great times with that 3-5-2. But I just think with Emery, there's just something about watching Villa that's been like, I can't remember watching a Villa team play like this. Yeah. And I can't remember feeling like going into every game ever where I've thought we can do this. We can beat whoever it is, and we'll have a plan. It might not work, but there's a plan in place. And
you're absolutely right. I think that is the key. You feel like we're going to try and do something. Like I said, it's never always going to come off.
Yeah,
we're never going to look lost. We're never going to look clueless. And there's always going to be a plan B, a plan C. So if something's not working, you just at this moment in time, I have full trust in the man and couldn't be more excited for next season.
Yeah, completely, absolutely agree. And yeah, next season, I'm just intrigued to see what he does. I wonder if there's going to be any tactical tweaks. Maybe it changes anything up from last season. He's very keen on getting a winger in, very clearly. Nico Williams. We've been linked with this Moussa Diaby and Jeremy Doku. It just seems like a position he really, really wants to fill. So I feel like that position is going to be extremely important next season. Yeah,
it should be fun times ahead, Frankie. And thank you very much for participating in that random 11.
Thank you very much, Webb. I really enjoyed that. I'm up for any more features we can do like that. That'd be great. I definitely might reconsider driving Route 66 with Jack Grealish, but I do think that there's the makings of a film in that one. So
yeah, I'll certainly tune in.